Welcome to the Earth Your Wild podcast, brought to you by Reuserbox, providing a better way to buy cardboard boxes. We're your hosts, Jack and Ellie.
This is the podcast where we talk to industry experts and change makers to try to answer the question, how do we make our businesses better for people and the planet? Today we're joined by Tessa Clarke, co-founder and CEO of Olio. Olio is the ultimate waste-busting app that connects people and enables them to share unwanted food and household items. With Olio, users can request items or give away things they no longer need, fostering a local sharing network. Olio has built a community of 8.5 million people across 64 countries. Together, they've redistributed over 110 million meals and 14 million household items. Welcome to the podcast, Tessa. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start with, for any listeners that don't already know, could you tell us, what is Olio and how does it work?
Yes, certainly. So Olio is an app that exists to help tackle the climate crisis by solving the problem of waste in our homes and local communities. We are most well known for tackling the problem of food waste, but actually we also tackle the problem of household waste more broadly. And how we do that is we're an app that is free to download, free to use, and we connect people with their neighbours so they can use the Olio app to give away rather than throw away their spare food and household items. So let's imagine you are going away on holiday perhaps and you've got some food you're not going to eat, or maybe you are decluttering the kids' playroom. You just snap a photo of your spare items and add them to Olio. People living nearby get an alert. They can browse the listings, request what they want, and pop round and pick it up. So it's hyper-local, it's neighbour to neighbour. And then most people are using Olio to give away food and other items from their homes. But we also have 150,000 volunteers now who are collecting unsold food from businesses and taking that food home and then giving that away to their community via the app. So we redistribute surplus food from thousands of Tesco, Sainsbury's, Iceland stores, as well as corporate canteens, school and hospital canteens, and also lots of TV and film production shoots.
Nice. Cool. So you've got a huge community now, 8.5 million users, according to your website, across 64 countries. Can you describe the real world impact of this? What kind of impact are you seeing?
So what's really interesting about Olio is that Sasha, my co-founder, and I really set up the business to have environmental impact primarily. And so just to quickly share our environmental impact stats, as you said sort of earlier on, I think you said 110 million. I think actually we've just passed 120 million meals worth of food redistributed via the app, and also 15 million household items. That has had a sort of greenhouse gas emissions impact equivalent to taking over 950 million car miles off the road, and has also saved 37 billion litres worth of water from going to waste. So we're having a massive environmental impact, but just as powerful is the social impact that we're having. And that's so often the case, isn't it? It's sort of what's good for the planet is good for people, and vice versa. And we find that 2/3 of our community say that they have made friends through Olio. 3/4 say that sharing has improved their mental health, and 84% say that using Olio has improved their financial well-being as well. So really, really powerful social impact. And I've shared sort of lots of stats, but actually the real magic is the stories, it's the connections, it's the relationships that people are building on a day-to-day basis. And some people love using Olio because it helps them get their step count in. Other people love it because it places them right at the heart of their community, perhaps if they're volunteering and rescuing and redistributing surplus food. So it's sort of something for everyone in Olio.
So the idea is that it's really like doorstep to doorstep. It's a really localized thing on your street almost. It's not kind of like where you don't really post items, things like that.
No, it's all super local. So over 60% of all the sort of pickups that take place are taking place within a 10-minute walk. So it is about reconnecting us with our local communities, because one of the core insights that we've had at Olio is that people don't enjoy sort of wasting food or wasting household items, but the problem is they're no longer connected to their local communities. They no longer have anyone to give those items to. And what we do is use mobile technology to reconnect people with their local community in a way that is safe and simple and fun, so that you have got an outlet for those items. So it really is true that sort of one person's trash is another person's treasure. It never ceases to amaze me, the things that are snapped up when you put them on Olio. And these are precisely the things that you're not going to sort of mail them halfway across the country or want to schlep to the post office to do that. But it is something that perhaps someone would pop around the corner to pick up.
Yeah, and like you say, just connecting people for people that might feel quite isolated, or they've just moved to a new area.
Yes, we get that.
A great way of building a community.
Yeah, people who've just moved to a new community, and they sort of often dive into Olio because it's sort of a low stakes way of getting to know people, just getting to know your own local neighbourhood and explore kind of the streets and the different areas.
And so we read you grew up on a farm in North Yorkshire. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. Certainly is. Yep. Guilty as charged.
Just wondered, are there any kind of early lessons that kind of really shaped you or shaped Olio today?
Yeah, that's a really funny one, because I spent all of my teen years and my 20s, arguably even into my kind of early 30s, just keeping quite quiet about my farming upbringing, because honestly, it was something that most people couldn't relate to. So certainly when I was a kid, everyone else was kind of going shopping or on movies or play dates or watching TV. And I was sort of out feeding pigs and moving cows and stuff like that. So it was quite unrelatable. And then when it came to getting my first job, I didn't feel like my experience on the farm was necessarily particularly helpful. But actually, now that I'm an entrepreneur, I realize that all of the most important entrepreneurial skills I actually gathered from that sort of childhood upbringing on a farm. So specifically, when you grow up on a farm, you learn how to problem solve, because every single day you are solving problems. When you're dealing with the weather and animals and machinery, these are all things that are totally unpredictable, always go wrong at exactly the wrong time. And you just got to sort of crack on. And it's a bit like sort of whack-a-mole of problem solving. The second thing that you've got to do is be incredibly creative and resourceful, because you don't always have the perfect tools to hand to solve that problem. So you've just got to sort of create a barrier in that fence where the cows have broken out with whatever materials you have immediately to hand. So you grow up being very creative, resourceful, very pragmatic. And then I think the third thing is you just grow up with oodles of resilience. So just growing up on a working farm, it is an awful lot of hard work, kind of 7 days a week. Christmas Day was always our hardest working day because there was never anyone else around to help and support. And even if it's -5 or if it's tanking it down with rain, you still have to go outside at the crack of dawn and stay working till late at night to feed the animals and get stuff done. So again, that sort of just that grit, that determination, these are all crucial ingredients for if you want to build a career as an entrepreneur.
You got any like specific stories about, anything that was a great learning experience when you were growing up or on the farm that, that had a big impact on you? Or
I guess one that sort of immediately springs to mind, it might fall into the sort of child cruelty category, I don't know, but I grew up riding. That was sort of the one thing that we did when we weren't working at home. We were riding. And there's one lesson my mum always taught us, which is that after you've fallen off, you absolutely have to get back on the pony under all circumstances. And so I had to get back on a pony when the pony had sort of slipped over with me on ice when I think I was 6 or 7 years old. I'd fractured my hip, had to get back on again. That was actually just very practically as to how to get me home. But there was another one where I had fallen off really, really sort of close to home and had sort of broken my arm. But again, like, you have to get back on the pony. And that taught me a sort of very powerful lesson, which is sort of no matter how down things are, no matter how big a failure is, that you just have to pick yourself back up again. And even if you're just kind of going through the motions, that's really, really important to kind of get you back on your feet.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me of myself, actually. We're not from that kind of...
Spend a lot of time in air ambulances, didn't you?
Yeah, we're not from that background, but I was always like obsessed with ponies. Would go and ride everyone else's ponies. And I had a lady that was very kind and used to find me ponies to ride. And yeah, that I was in the air ambulance a few times, and I fell off and broke my collarbone. And the first thing I thought was... No, I did. I thought, is the horse okay? I better get back on the horse to check he's okay. With my arm like this, and then I thought, I've definitely broken that, but I'll sort that out later. It's a bit, I think country people are a bit different, really.
They are, and you're also brought up, as you say, that the animals always come first. So again, I think that's sort of impacted my leadership style, which is, perhaps this isn't always a good thing. Well, I'll kind of always put other people first, because that was just trained in me from the very youngest of age. Sort of, there was a hierarchy in the farm, and sort of children were at the bottom of it, and the animals were significantly higher up than us. But I think that's no bad thing.
Do you think the whole being closer to nature, and more animals and do you think that helps give you an appreciation, in terms of when it comes to obviously creating an environmental impact business,
Yeah. I absolutely would. So when you grow up on a farm and you're spending all your time outside in nature with the animals, you realise how it's all just this massive ecosystem, and we're just sort of one part of that. And you realise how important the concept of balance is, and sustainability, and I mean that in sort of the most holistic sense of the word. And that definitely meant, I remember when I was at university hearing for the first time about things like acid rain and pollution, and there wasn't so much around heating or global warming as it was called back then, but I can remember feeling really agitated and motivated and thinking, I definitely want to do something to try and help solve environmental problems.
Yeah, I remember thinking I could actually see the climate changing, as crazy as that sounds. I notice things like when you're thinking about animals and stuff, you think what you're going to put on them and stuff. And I think this winter we haven't had any, not this particular winter, but one winter we had no snow. And I think, that's really weird, isn't it? We used to find it really hard to break the water troughs, and now there's no snow and ice, and I found that quite scary, actually.
It is scary, and we're just talking sort of coming off the tail end of just an insane heat wave, and part of me quite enjoyed it. It's quite nice having some warm weather, but the other part of me is absolutely scared rigid, because this is just the sort of opening gambit. This is just the start of what is to come. And when you look at the nature and the plants and the animals, it's going to be extremely challenging for them to adapt to this rapidly changing climate. But I do think that actually, again, there's sort of silver lining in everything, but I think most people here in the UK now are noticing it. So this has taken climate change from being this sort of slightly academic, slightly distant, ephemeral thing they can't quite place their fingers on, to, oh my goodness, we have got an infestation of ladybirds that's going on right now that never normally happens. And oh my goodness, my garden is charred to pieces. And people are seeing the real life effects in their own lives. And I do think that is ultimately quite helpful in terms of just collectively waking us up and inspiring people to start taking action.
Yeah, so your initial idea for Olio was sparked during a move from Switzerland when you couldn't bear to throw food out. Can you describe this light bulb moment and how you turned it into your global movement?
Yeah, that's a big question. I'll try and answer it succinctly. So I had wanted to do something entrepreneurial for a couple of years, but I had one key challenge, which was that I didn't have an idea. I now look back and think that I retrospectively wasted quite a lot of time wandering around the world, hoping that an idea would descend from the heavens and lo and behold, it didn't. What happened in practice was I encountered a problem that was so big that I couldn't possibly ignore it. So my advice to anyone who wants to do something entrepreneurial today would be to go out into the world for 24 hours or a week or whatever it might be, and just take note of every single problem that you see and encounter, and then double down on thinking about solving the problems that you're really passionate about. So for me, the problem that I encountered was I was moving back to the UK, and on moving day, the removal men told me I had to throw away all of our uneaten food. The farmer's daughter in me flat out refused to do that. And so instead of throwing that food away, I took that food along with my newborn baby and toddler, and I set out into the streets, hoping to find someone to give it to. Unfortunately, I failed miserably, went back to my apartment, and then when the removal men were in another room, I hid the food in the bottom of my packing boxes. And that was the moment where I just thought, this is ridiculous. I'm sort of resorting to cross-border smuggling, and I'm definitely not the smuggling sort. And I had been working in the digital space for a decade. I knew there was an app for absolutely everything, and I couldn't believe there wasn't a simple app where I could advertise my spare food, and whoever was living nearby who wanted it could request it and pop around and pick it up. So that was the light bulb moment. But we took a couple of steps between that idea and making it a reality in terms of an app. One of the key things that we did was we ran a proof of concept using WhatsApp. And so we'd done a market research survey, and through that had identified a bunch of people who absolutely hated food waste, and they all lived close to each other in North London, didn't know each other, didn't know us. We organised this all via email, and we asked them if they'd take part in an experiment for 2 weeks where we put them onto a WhatsApp group, and we said, if any of you have any spare food, then there might be some other people in this group who might want it. And we launched that on a weekend in April. We waited with bated breath for an agonising period of time until that Monday morning. And then on the Monday morning, we had our first item of food shared, which was half a bag of shallots. And that was requested, honestly, within, I think, about 23 minutes. And then in the subsequent 2 weeks, we had lots of items given away via the WhatsApp group. And so that proof of concept then gave us the confidence to invest our life savings building an app, because the App Store, honestly, is full of hundreds of millions of apps, the vast majority of which never get used. So we really wanted to kind of try and de-risk it and prove to ourselves that people were prepared to give away and pick up food from strangers, and that WhatsApp group helped us to do that. And then in terms of how we've grown to the movement that we are today, I think one of the most important things we've done is, sort of sounds very obvious, but we have asked people to help us. And so in the early days, people would reach out to us and say, I love Olio, how can I help? And so Sasha and I probably had about 100 calls with those early folks, co-creating with them and brainstorming what they could do to help Olio. And where we are today is we've got 2 volunteering programs. One is to become an Olio ambassador, and we've got over 60,000 of those, and they're people who are spreading the word about Olio in their local community, using posters, letters, flyers, as well as sharing on their social networks. And then we also have our Food Waste Heroes program, and that's 150,000 volunteers who collect and redistribute the surplus food from businesses. Both of those are really important subsections of our community are really passionate about Olio, and they spread the word about Olio. And each month we have between 50 and 70,000 people join Olio, and over half of them are coming to us through word of mouth. So really investing in community is incredibly powerful, although it's very, very emotionally draining and exhausting, because when you build a strong community, they're extremely passionate about everything you do, and they really are constantly sort of demanding better, and they don't necessarily fully understand, nor should they, all the trade-offs you're having to make, or the resource constraints that you're dealing with. So it's definitely a double-edged sword building a community-led business, but sort of net, I think it's a wonderful thing.
And for anyone listening that's maybe, you know, in a similar situation to you at the start, so maybe like a founder or someone in a startup, or someone with an idea, or maybe like a change maker in a bigger organization. So what's the like the core advice there? So is it like testing your idea?
So I think sort of testing any idea in a low cost or no cost way. Like, you just need to break it down to sort of what are the core things you have to believe for this to work. And then you need to kind of really identify your showstoppers and test those first. And don't spend any time, for example, worrying about your logo. So we bought our logo and our colour palette and stuff, I think for £150 off people per hour, because we knew that this app wasn't going to live or die by its logo and its font and its colours. So that's one important thing. I think with the community piece, it can be very attractive. Like, a lot of people think, oh, I want to build a community-led business, but you have to be really honest about whether your business has the raw ingredients that can actually make that happen. And we are fortunate in that we have a mission that is incredibly strong, that lots of people care about, lots of people are passionate about. So that's great. We also have something that people can get involved with on a daily, weekly, on a regular basis. So we remain top of mind for people. And we have a forum section in the app, which enables the community to stay connected. And then we have lots of different types of actions that the community can take, so people can get involved as much or as little as they like, very much on their terms. So you really do need to make sure that you've got sort of the right ingredients for a community-led business, and then that you, if you're serious about it, it needs to be a core part of your strategy. It absolutely cannot be an add-on. So as a co-founder, I spend a lot of time in and with our community and managing community relations, managing community communications.
And Olio is often known as the feel-good sharing app.
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective, why do you think something as simple as giving away food or surplus items, why do you think it has such a powerful emotional effect?
My theory is that it all comes back to how we evolved. So if you think about it, food is literally our life source. Sort of, it's easy to forget in the modern world, where for many of us it can appear very abundant. But the reality is, without it, we die, and really quite quickly. And we are quite unique as a species. And if you speak to social anthropologists, that's a large part as to how we've been so quote unquote successful as a species, is because we have shared our most precious resource, which is food. And so it really is kind of hardwired in us two things. One, to dislike wasting food. And on the other hand, two, we get that sort of feel-good factor when we give food away, because collectively it kind of strengthens our community, and we're a species that thrives on sort of strong communities. And the same applies to household items as well. You just get that wonderful kind of feel-good factor of something that you just don't need anymore. And it does just feel amazing to give something a second life with someone who wants it. Or sadly, in this day and age, with the cost of living crisis still raging, too many people need these items. So our biggest challenge actually at Olio is not demand. There's no shortage of people who want to pick up free food and free household items. Our number one challenge is encouraging people to take the 10 seconds to snap a photo and add their spare food or household items to the app, to believe that, one, to take the time to do it, and then two, to believe that someone else would want it. So we have something that we often sort of refer to as, like, internally, as sort of the middle class problem, which is that a lot of people think, well, I wouldn't go and pick up a small head of broccoli, or I wouldn't go and do X, Y, and Z. But that doesn't mean to say there aren't millions of other people in the country who would absolutely do that. So we always encourage people to sort of give it a go, have a bit of a declutter, give something away, and then you get to really experience the magic of Olio.
Sometimes I guess it's a bit of a behaviour change as well, because I think we all have that thing of taking things to a charity shop. Maybe we can think about, we understand what that is, but it's just a different kind of thing, isn't it? Uploading it to an app, and then I guess having to negotiate how you hand it over as well. It might be a bit scary for some people, maybe.
You're absolutely right. It is about behaviour change. But the beauty of it is that you, unlike sort of the charity store, you don't have to even leave your home, and you can do it any time of day or night, and you get to meet the person who is benefiting from your item. And I think that's where it's really, really lovely. You know that item is going to be used, whereas sadly, too often with charity stores, a lot of it ends up just going to rag, or they just honestly can't use many of the things that people send into them. So obviously it's horses for courses, but yes, you're right, it does require behaviour change.
And you said that's like your biggest challenge, is getting people, getting them to start giving their stuff away that they don't need. What's your secret? Like, what's the biggest thing that you do to get people to break that barrier?
Well, honestly, there isn't one silver bullet, because if there is, we'd have hundreds of millions of people using Olio now rather than a handful of millions of people. We have tried every single trick in the book, sort of cajoling people, bribing people, paying people, feel-good factoring people, conveniencing, sort of. We've tried to pull absolutely every lever that we can. The most effective behavioural psychology model that we have found and that we use regularly at Olio is the EAST model. So if you want to change behaviour, you need to make it easy, you need to make it attractive, you need to make it social, and you need to make it timely. And I think the ones that have been underutilised by the sustainability movement really are social and attractive. Well, in fact, many of them really, but social is an easy one to tackle. Like, you just need to give people proof points that other people are doing this thing. And that's been one of the most frustrating learnings, actually, is that the single biggest determinant as to whether someone will take an action or not is their belief that lots of other people have taken that action. So you're definitely in the early days caught in that sort of chicken and egg situation of how do I persuade people to take action when not that many people are yet. So you will see through Olio's communications and through our onboarding, there's lots of kind of social proof points that we use to point out to people that this is something that lots of other people like them are doing.
And can you tell us a bit, I think you mentioned earlier about your ambassador program as well. How does that work?
So we have roughly 60,000 ambassadors. These are people who are passionate about our mission. They want to be able to use Olio near them, and or they want to help spread the word about Olio. So we put them on a digital pathway where we send them lots of material and communications that they can share in their social networks. And then they can also download, or if they live in the UK or Ireland, we'll mail to them posters, letters, flyers, etc. So they can do sort of hyper-local guerrilla marketing. And people get incredibly creative about how they are helping to spread the word about Olio. And they'll often take a little stand at community events and spread the word on our behalf.
Just wanted to know, what's the secret behind like that incredible growth that you've had as an organisation? Or
I guess because you haven't really got a marketing budget, is that right? You rely a lot on things like your ambassador program and your
So we have invested in marketing over the years. The most cost-effective marketing channel for us is, like pretty much everybody else that we know, has been performance marketing, although that has become more expensive as the years have gone by. We have experimented when we had more cash with TV advertising, radio, out of home. So we've got lots of learnings for those mediums, but really kind of performance marketing combined with community is the most cost-effective and scalable growth channels for us.
So you describe Olio as a for-profit impact company. How do you keep your investors aligned with purpose, not just profit?
So that's actually not been too difficult for us, because we are very clear from the outset that we are a B Corp. We are all about profit with purpose. And also we have built a business model where the more we scale our purpose or our impact, the more revenues we generate. So actually we've got a model whereby profit and the purpose grow in lockstep with one another. And we've also selected our investors very carefully. So all of our investors need to be not just mission aligned, but mission obsessed. They need to have truly patient capital, and they need to be sort of good human beings. Now, of course, though, we've had to continually sort of adjust, I guess, growth versus profitability in response to kind of what's happening in the macroeconomic environment. So in earlier years, it was about growth at all costs. Now it's much more about getting to profitability, and we're not immune from that in any way, shape or form. So that's a real focus of ours sort of right now.
And female-led climate tech typically receives about 2.3% of VC funding, according to our research. What advice would you give to any founders listening facing that bias? Mm-hmm. And is there any changes that you want to see?
Yeah, so the bias against female co-founded businesses is very real. As you say, they only get 2% of all venture capital funding. Male-founded businesses get 85%, and mixed teams get the delta. What I would recommend to any business that is founded either by female founders or diverse founders of any type, first of all, kind of know those odds, know that they are stacked against you, and then don't take it personally. And then sort of arm yourself, equip yourself as to how to sort of play the game and be quite aware of the biases, conscious and unconscious, that exist against you. So in the case of female co-founded businesses, people assume that we're not ambitious and we're not commercial. So you need to do everything that you can in terms of how you present yourself, through to how you communicate, through to the order of items that are included in your pitch deck to really counter those biases. I also recommend everyone watches the TED Talk by Dana Kanzi, where she says that the reason why female-founded businesses get less capital is because they are asked prevention questions rather than promotion questions. They're asked questions all about the downside rather than the upside. And the way to counter that is to answer a prevention question with a promotion response.
So the final question is, so let's fast forward 10 years. So it's the 16th of July, 2035. What does the world look like when it comes to waste, and what role is Olio playing in that?
So in my dream world, if you'll allow me to fantasize a little bit, is that we really have flipped the default mode from the one that we have at the moment, which is that when people want to consume, they consume something that is brand new, that's probably been shipped to them from thousands of miles away. And instead, we flip to a new model of consumption where the default is to consume secondhand and ideally something that's sourced from your local community. And if we do that, then we stand much more of a chance of living within planetary boundaries. We will all be healthier, wealthier, and happier. And it really is sort of, whether we like it or not, that is the economic and consumption model that we are going to have to move to. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. No worries.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly worth your while. For more information, visit reuserbox.co.uk/worth-your-while.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Earth Your While, please email media@reuserbox.co.uk.